afternoon, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to the leadership of Pascack Valley Regional High School District. We have our superintendent here, Mr. Erik Gundersen, and I'll turn it over to you, Erik.
Thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity for us to get together with you to talk about this really important initiative of equity and inclusivity in our district. So the Pascack Valley Regional High School District is a small suburban school district, grades 9 through 12 only, in northeastern New Jersey. We are located about a half an hour outside of New York City. And we have two high schools, one with about 1,000 students, the other with about 800 students. And we are a vastly predominantly white school district with a growing community of diverse learners entering our buildings. But that does require a shift, and we have placed a heavy emphasis on the aspect of equity and inclusivity over the last several years. And I think really this year's work has really been important in our district moving forward. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Mark Russo, who is not only our supervisor of mathematics and computer science, but is also in charge of our equity work here in our district. And he has really led the charge with not only the administration, the Board of Education, teachers, but also students on this equity work. So I'd like to thank him for being here as well.
Thanks, Erik. And just to build on that a little bit, particularly over the last couple years, we've been doing a lot of work with data. So we have data in our student information systems that give us a sense on how students are accessing our course offerings and how to what levels they are achieving, and whether, we've been learning a little bit more about the extent to which students and groups of students are meeting their full potential. We've also been doing quite a lot of qualitative data collection, hearing students' voices either in small groups, in focus groups, or even doing writing prompts. And these experiences have taught us or reinforced for us that we need to commit even more to doing whatever we can to make Pascack Hills and Pascack Valley places that are inviting and welcoming for all students and all groups of students. We have a great district, but we are committed to making it an even better district for our students.
Awesome. I think one of the things that Dwayne, if I can just jump in real quickly here, Mark really did a phenomenal job really collecting data, both quantitative and qualitative data from all of our students about how included they feel in the Pascack Valley regional family. And the data was really eye-opening for a lot of us. This school district, as I would imagine many other school districts, we have pockets of students who don't feel as welcome and included in the school district as the majority of students. And so we embarked in a lot of training with our staff members, specifically in the area of implicit bias. We talked a lot about white privilege, which made a lot of people feel uncomfortable, but really brought this topic to a head for all of us. And then when you fast forward into the events of the spring, we have the pandemic, we have the murder of George Floyd, and our students really stepping up, many of our students really stepping up and talking about how Black Lives Matter and what we as a school district are doing to acknowledge the various backgrounds and experiences that students have, and also informing us of how we are not doing all of our students justice and how we need to be different and improve upon things. And I'd like to say that we have a very open ear to what students are looking for, and we certainly as a school district need to do better and can do better. Our Board of Education heard very much from our students about what they were looking for. And we had a student-initiated movement to change our school mascots this year. We used to be the Pascack Valley Indians, and we used to also be the Pascack Hills Cowboys. And our Board of Education overwhelmingly voted to retire those mascots because the board recognized the pain and the injustice that having mascots that are really not reflective of equity and inclusivity, they recognize the pain that that can cause, and that's not who we want to be. So that in its own right has brought the topic of equity and inclusivity to a head in our district. And it's a very now emotional topic. Whereas 6 months ago, this was very scientifically based, professional development. Now it's very emotionally charged by people that are very much involved in this type of work, as well as people that are not involved in this work and are wondering what this district is doing, and how perhaps radical we're being perceived by some people in our community.
Great. So let me pose this question to you for our digital equity and innovation chats. How have the experiences of the past shaped your understanding of the impact of race, culture, and ethnicity on teaching and learning?
Erik, do you mind if I jump in on that first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Dwayne, that's a really good question, and I think Erik just framed it really well for me. I think that statement, I always would have agreed that race, culture, and ethnicity have a large impact on teaching and learning, but I think I would have argued it from an intellectual perspective and not so much from an experiential perspective. This past year has changed the way that I see this question. I'm thinking particularly of the week following the murder of George Floyd. We have two groups in each one of our buildings, student equity leadership teams. And the week following his murder, we came together over the weekend to have a conversation, and just the emotion and the pain and the recognition on my part that some of the other things that I was focusing on or trying to attend to, with teachers in math classes, they were not primary. So it reinforced for me that we need to be attentive to the needs of all of our students. We need to recognize that the differences and the perspectives are strengths that teachers need to draw on and that actually benefit a student's peers as well. So it really sort of launched me into a further belief that an asset-based approach to teaching and learning is what we need, because we have such a vibrant, powerful, interesting, unique group of students, and every single one of them has something really powerful to bring. And that's how we need to think about our teaching and learning. So yes, race, culture, and ethnicity are a part of our students. They're a part of how society is framed, and therefore they are a part of our teaching and learning. We just have to recognize it to a greater extent.
Great, thank you. So to follow up on these experiences that you talked about, how has this reinforced your district's commitment to equity?
Oh, I think it certainly has reinforced it. And Dr. Russo and I were just talking a few minutes ago about a conversation we had in a board retreat a few summers ago about equity. And Mark, you shared a bunch of data that showed that there were inequitable outcomes based upon race in our district. And we have a relatively small minority population in our district. And the board felt that this was important to address and very much acknowledge the numbers, but it wasn't at the time necessarily of primary importance. And I think that after the events of this year, our board, as evidenced in our most recent board retreat, has made equity and inclusivity its #1 goal for the district, as well as the #1 goal for our Board of Education to get better at this work, to create a vision statement, to create policy around equity and inclusivity. So what's been happening in society, both nationally as well as locally, has really influenced this board.
Great. I'd like to thank you guys for your championing of educational equity, and we look forward to hearing from you guys soon.
Thanks so much for having us. Appreciate it.